Negativity, eternal pessimism, lazy body language, constant complaining, the poor mouth. I bet you even visualising those phrases has already begun to drain your energy. We encounter people with negative behaviours every single day, and while we can choose to avoid some of those people, others we may be stuck with, such as family, work colleagues, team members. Where does negativity come from, and how can we prevent ourselves being affected by it? We're going to talk about that and more right now. Hi, you're listening to The Fight Coach, the Psychotherapist and the Gym Mama. FCPGM is a weekly podcast where we discuss important topics that affect you and your family and tips we suggest that might just help you out. On today's episode, we're going to look at tactics to deal with the moaning Myrtles of our lives. We need to be impervious to gloom so that we can keep on firing on all cylinders and not get dragged into a black hole. I'm joined, of course, by James White of API Clinics, a psychotherapist well versed in the world of mental health, stress management and anxiety.
How's it going?
Marlene Griffin, aka the Gym Mama, a parent of 3, an owner-manager of a busy martial arts and fitness gym, and a lifelong martial artist.
Hiya!
My name is Liam Griffin. I'm a professional MMA coach and an e-learning developer with an engineering background. If you'd like to follow along with us using our show notes, you can get them at www.fcpgm.com. There you'll find links to our Facebook community page, our Twitter feed and our Discord server. If you'd like to join the conversation, add your experience and feedback, we'd love to hear from you. So, let's begin. Okay, so negative people. We've got lots of different types. I think the first thing we need to do is maybe list out a couple of different types of negative people that affect us in everyday life. Do you guys have any negative people that you want to give a shout out to?
All the negative netties.
I suppose it's very easy there to sit and say negative people, but I think we're all guilty of being negative at some part of the day or the week. So we can all, feel kind of, we play a part in this, that, try every morning to be positive, but sometimes the negativity just creeps in and it's a constant battle sometimes to be that positive person. I think anybody who thinks that they're positive every day, well, I'm not sure I've met them anyway.
Are they with us?
So just a couple of different types of negativity that we can experience from people. You've got the eternal pessimist, the kind of person that no matter what happens or no matter what we're planning in the future, it's just, there's no point. They're nihilists. They're like,
the glass is always half empty.
Mm-hmm. So I suppose that is that a negative attitude, or is it a negative person, or is it just a life of bad experiences that have just got on top of somebody? Is it depression? Could it be any of all of them, or what is it?
Any and all of them. I suppose from when you look at negative people and why are they always negative, or why are they always thinking negative? There's a multitude of reasons for that happening, and it would be based down to how their brain is working and all the what they call in the neurological field would be the neural pathways in the brain, and the ones that are built up stronger compared to the ones that are weaker. You would generally find that somebody who's constantly negative thinking has just basically got the M50 is their negative road.
Yep.
and they're on the M50 all the time,
But we're evolutionary programmed. We've been talking about this in a few different episodes, but we're evolutionarily programmed to default to negative.
Yeah.
Because that's what helped us survive more in the generations and thousands of generations of evolution as we go along. And I've come across a few different videos and articles that talk about it, like you can have a positive attitude and you can have a negative attitude, but it's easier to switch from positive to negative and much more difficult to switch from negative to positive once you get into that frame of mind. it takes an extra effort to get from negative to positive.
Yeah, well, it's become the default. It's become the default mode to go to. So in the first instance, we generally go to the negative part of the situation or conversation or whatever it is. In the first, that's our first stop, and it's like you said, it is. You know, we've created this as a species, and a lot of it would be to do with, if you want to look into, say, the parts of the brain, you're talking about the limbic parts of the brain where the amygdala is, which is responsible for your fight, flight, freeze. And even though you may not go into physically fight or flight mode, it's the cortisol that's being released from that negative thought because you're in that part of your brain is being, I suppose, activated. So there's bits of cortisol coming in, but maybe not enough to go over and hit the wall or hit somebody or whatever like that, but it creates that flow of thought then.
And is there another type of person, Mar, that would kind of fit into this? Like, what other types of negativity can we experience apart from, we said, the eternal pessimist?
Well, I suppose you have kind of, somebody who's constantly complaining. Do you know what I mean? They get up in the morning and it's either too hot or it's either too cold or it's either too wet, and it's, they're you ever hear somebody who knows every weather forecast and really, they'll find a reason for not being happy for that. So just constantly complaining, I find that very draining myself. Even though I do complain, I'm very guilty of being whingy and complaining. But I think that, sometimes you have to kind of take a step back and kind of re-avert yourself, and you have to, it's a mindset, I think, that we're all in danger of going in there, and we have to really, really think about it, not to go down that road. But definitely a lot of people just complain all the time.
And I want to kind of just touch on that being like, okay, we talked about the eternal pessimist. First, I suppose the eternal pessimist is the umbrella term for a lot of these individual types of things. So the constant complainer being the one that Mar mentioned there. The other thing is the type of person that comes up with the poor mouth. This is one that gets on my goat a lot. Is that somebody talks about never having enough money or never having enough of this. Never. We talked about our last podcast is not having enough, but somebody who is constantly, and they might have more money than you have, but yet they feel the need to tell you how little money they have, or how little they have of this, or I don't have enough time, I don't have this or that. So the poor mouth is another type of negative person. Is there anybody on the list that kind of resonates with you, Jimmy, or that kind of gets on your goat?
But then you have the person who always finds a problem with something. There's always a problem. Even if the sun is shining and everything is going grand and there's no major catastrophes happening in the world, they'll find a problem with something, as in the colour of the leaves and the trees are wrong and they shouldn't be that colour. Do you know what I mean? They'll always find a problem.
I always find the leaves are the wrong colour.
I ever feel that, when you get into this negative thing that, when some people feel like, everything is going grand, so something has to go wrong. And they get into, having a pain in their chest because they should be worried about something that actually they can't remember what they're worried about, and now they're worried and negative about it because they don't even know what it is. So that kind of spirals out of control then, and that they can't even enjoy. The negative person doesn't really enjoy life for that reason.
So another one that gets on my goat is just kind of just lazy body language. Somebody that's always gone, or just moping. Moping is now.
When they come in and they're like the face, and you're just kind of going, oh Jesus, I've actually just felt my whole life fall down to the bottom of my feet because I have to nearly back to them and say, all right, how am I going to pick this up? So it is body languages. Oh my God, it's,
But even what you've just said there is, just by looking at that person, you've automatically been affected in that negative instance, in that moment.
Totally.
Even though it's brief, but you've been triggered by it, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Just kind of see like you're something and you're kind of going, oh my God, I have a fight here now just to keep myself going. And that's and that's very hard if you are in a negative mood and you want to be be kind of say, okay, I need to get out of this. Next you meet somebody who's in a negative mood, you're going, oh God.
Yeah. And the other one there, just I'm looking back at my list here, but the other one that came up this weekend actually is somebody that constantly needs to be the center of attention. It's not necessarily always negative, but it is a negative type of behavior. So the particular instance that I'm thinking of is over the weekend we had UFC 254, and Khabib Nurmagomedov had a great performance. He went 29-0, had an absolutely kind of an emotional roller coaster over the last few months. He's lost his father. He had a bad camp and went in, and this was supposed to be the toughest fight of his career, and he took the guy out with little or no resistance and made it look easy. And then immediately afterwards retired. So he left his gloves in the center of the octagon, and he retired, and he said that he wanted to be known as the greatest of all time. Now, whether he wanted to be known as the greatest of all time, that's another argument, and there's a debate on that ongoing. The internet hasn't shut down since, and but the person who was negative about it was our John Jones, our light heavyweight stroke heavyweight contender, and John Jones just could not leave it for one night alone. He just could not leave it and say, look, do you know what? It's his night tonight. He's after having a great fight, and he's had an emotional time, and he wants to retire, and he just wants to leave that there as it is. Just leave him have his moment. Leave him have a week. Leave him have whatever. But no, he just had to rant and rant and rant, and there was tweet after tweet. There was videos went up, and he said, he's not the greatest. I'm the greatest. It's just not your time, John Jones, you know. It's not your time to do that. But that's the type of having to be the center of attention, that type of behavior, and I think that's a very draining negative behavior. Do you agree? Or
Yeah, no, I mean, it is when you're faced with it and it's coming at you. And look, you know, the person you're talking about, John Jones, he's full of and surrounded by negative press, negative instances and situations that he's driving himself into. And again, when you're in that mode, I suppose I don't even know if you're purposely searching a way out, but maybe there's some part of you that's trying to get out there, and by becoming the centre of attention, it's fueling you. See, the other thing is when you're around people who say good things about you or do good things with you or are very positive around you, you release a chemical called dopamine, and we like this. The body likes it because it's a feel good. It's one of the feel good chemicals. You know what I mean? That puts us in a better mindset. So if you were having, you know, a bad time or you're feeling down, and then all of a sudden a friend comes and asks you for a cup of coffee and you go for a walk or whatever it is, you can raise, your spirits can be raised slightly. So then you can sort of strive to seek for that all the time, because again, you're not looking at self, and we've talked about this before in regards to self-awareness and self-understanding. You're looking for somebody else to make you feel better, rather than being able to work on yourself and stuff. And like, you know, science will tell us that, you know, if you're surrounded by negativity or negative people, then you're going to start to feel and see the world in a negative way all the time, consistently. And there's a famous, well, he may not be famous to everybody else, but he's a Canadian neuropsychologist called Donald Hebb from the 1950s, and he had that he's that quote, which is neurons that fire together wire together. And effectively what he's saying is, if you are, you know, constantly in that negative place, in that negative thought, in that negative sensation and feeling, then you're building that neural pathway in your brain, and it becomes the M50. That's why we default to it in the first instance. Do you know what I mean?
So the other type of negative behavior as well that gets on my goat is the one-upmanship. So again, it might not necessarily be a negative behavior, but it has negative effects. So for example, usage is I have an awful pain in my leg here, and the one-upper says, well, it's not as bad as my leg, my leg is falling off. Or someone says like, I didn't get enough sleep last night. I didn't sleep for 5 days. There's always a reason for why they have it worse than you have, and it's like, okay, dude, I wasn't like, it's not a competition.
I just have a sore leg.
Yeah. So the one upper. Any on my list there? So I have a list up on the back wall here. What any on those there?
Well, sometimes what I find very negative is when people try and actually tell me how to be positive from a negative place themselves, but they don't realise it, that they're in this place and they're in this situation, and they talk all day long about positivity and about what you should do, and then talk about a negative situation. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, and instead of, like, we don't, like, I suppose the negativity, just because you say you're not negative about it, sometimes just mentioning some place where you were at a time is not positive, is actually quite negative as well. And I find that kind of negativity, for me, I like to hear good things of how for, I suppose, not negative for me would be to have left certain things behind and negativity behind, but to kind of have a look at what's good about the day, as opposed to what was bad, and you keep telling people, well, no, this is the way to be positive.
Yeah. So I used to be depressed, and this is how you can not be depressed.
Yeah, exactly. Because you imagine then, for me anyway, if I were to talk about that, certain situations that would have been negative for me, I imagine that that's like a magnet for all the people who are feeling you're negative as opposed to your positive. Mm-hmm. They're there because they have they are in a negative position and they want to be positive, which, to be positive, you need to be with a positive person. For me, that's what rubs off. If I'm with a negative person, I feel negative. If I'm with a positive person, I smile and I'm positive. So it's that kind of thing does kind of get to me sometimes. That I was very negative. I was very positive and smiling and saying, you're doing a great job. And next you tell me this big sad story, and I'm kind of going, I don't feel positive now anymore.
So the idea that negativity can be draining, this is a huge concept, and I think this is the nubs of the problem with dealing with negative people. It's not that you have to put up with why they're being negative or anything like that. It's how does it affect you? So if you're in the presence of someone who is acting negatively or bringing up negative topics or behaving negatively, and then you get stressed over that, or you get depressed over that, or you get anxious, or your energy starts to come down, well, then that's the problem. And we typically describe that as just they drained the life out of me. It's like dragging teeth or that's it's that feeling of draining, like they're just sapping the energy out of you.
Energy vampires.
Why is that? Why are we being drained? What exactly is draining us?
Because I suppose, like, if you think about it, like, life isn't all positive. There's challenges that we face and situations that we face on day-to-day basis. Each person as an individual, whether it be personal, business, money, finances, whatever, there's challenges out there that we face. And again, going back to say how we've evolved as a species and we're defaulting to the negative zone, the more that you go there, the more that you're in that negative, that place, it's not only affecting you mentally, it's affecting you physically too. Like, there's nothing that happens mentally in your body that doesn't affect you physically. If you think about when talk about fighting. So when you're fighting, your adrenaline's released, your heart is pumping, your blood is, do you know what I mean? And you can still be in a happy place with that because that's what you like to do. And you can also be in a scared place or a fearful place because obviously somebody else wants to come out and knock the head off you. Or if you wake up in the morning and it's raining and you have this thought in your head, oh no, it's raining out today, what a disaster, the weather's terrible. You're setting yourself up. So the reason that it's draining you energetically wise is neurologically you're affected mentally, which is also is connected to your physicality of your body. So it is draining your energy. We're made up of energy. So it's like if you sit down and eat 10 pizzas, you're not going to feel as good as if you ate 10 salads. Do you know what I mean? Or well, maybe. But you know what I'm saying? It's going to affect.
Yeah, I know.
The balance isn't there. You haven't got the balance of the positive and negative sort of getting you on an even keel, because you're just going down. It's like going down a tunnel with no torch.
So one of the sources that I kind of came across on this was a YouTube channel from a clinical psychologist by the name of Dr. Julia Christina. I have it in the show notes as well. So for anybody that's watching or listening in, if you go to the show notes on FCPGM.com, you will find links to the videos or articles that we discussed during the podcast anyway. But Dr. Julia Christina has a really good video on how emotionally intelligent people deal with negative people. And she talks about the one of the main reasons that we're drained by negative people is because we have this compulsion to fix them in the first place. So the idea that, okay, somebody comes in and they have the poor mouth, oh, I don't have enough of this, I don't have enough of that, and then instantly you're saying, but can you get a job, or can you borrow money, or can you do this, but they're not interested. Somebody who's got the poor mouth and is complaining to you, they're not looking for a solution, they're looking to complain. So by you getting into the frame mind of trying to fix something, you're trying to fix something that doesn't want to be fixed. It's like trying to assemble an IKEA flat pack that has no screws. Do you know, it doesn't want to be fixed. The thing is like, and that's not just with the poor mouth person. It's with the person who finds problems in everything, and you're trying to say, okay, give me solutions, but they don't want to give you solutions. They want to find problems. Somebody that's constantly complaining about the weather, or about world events or whatever it is, they don't want for you to fix the world events. They want something else to complain about, because that's just the mode that they're in. But the compulsion that we have when we're up against somebody that's negative to fix whatever it is that they have that's negative, that's very, very draining.
But that's where your empathy comes in. You're feeling empathy for them, and you want to try and help them, and they'll always come back with, you know, when you give them a solution, or you give them maybe an option, they'll use sort of, and they'll come back and they'll say, yeah, but. And that's when they're going into the next part of their negativity to give you another reason why that won't work, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And just that phrase alone,
That's
yeah,
draining,
but I just kind of sank into my chair there a little bit when I heard that phrase. You know, it is a very, very negative phrase. And Jocko Willink, you know Jocko Willink? No?
No.
Okay, so Jocko Willink, a lot of our listeners will actually be fans of Jocko Willink. He's kind of in this kind of same niche as us, but he's kind of I think he's a former Navy SEAL or Special Forces, or some sort of army guy anyway, kind of like similar to David Goggins, but he's also a jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's got a podcast, and he's very much kind of like, he relates everything in life is related to the battlefield, and how, like, you know, teamwork is all about your squadron, and negative people are called echoes. Like, they're Echo does this, Echo does that, you know, or Charlie does this, or Charlie does that. So he's very, it's like going to counselling with a drill sergeant, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and he's got that real kind of deep voice as well. But he has a very interesting way of dealing with complainers. So within a squadron or within a team where you have somebody that's complaining, oh, I don't think this is the right way to do it. No, I think we should do that. And oh, he messed that up now. This is an awful way of doing things. He says, put them in charge. You say to them, okay, Echo, because that's what he calls them, right? All right, Echo. You seem to have a lot of ideas here as to how we could improve. I think you should take the lead on this. Why don't you head up the project and we'll all follow you, and let's see how it goes. And he reckons this is a great way of dealing with complainers, that they'll either have one of two reactions. Either number one, they'll be empowered and they'll go ahead and lead a team and come up with some solutions. And because they're in a problem solving mode, then they're out of the negative mode. Or secondly, they'll say, oh, fuck it, no, you're right, okay, carry on. And they'll shut up. So it's one of two reactions, and it's a very, very good way, you know.
Well, I think sometimes, like, I really do think, I agree with the one that you'd be trying to fix somebody. Sometimes, like, you know, when somebody is negative, it's just kind of, you know, you take it on board yourself, so it's your own fault if they actually impact on you. So you have to be a bit like, you know, if they're sad, and sure, I'm here if you need me and all the rest, you know, because I suppose I kind of thought about it even when we were thinking about this subject. I remember when the kids were growing up in school, you know, that they would have, say, people they wouldn't have a nice day in school because their friend was cross with them or odd with them. And it was kind of, I remember particularly saying it to Nicole, was saying, do you know what, you should be friends with many people. And when you walk in the morning, the one that's smiling and looking forward to the day ahead, be her friend for the day, instead of actually you know, with kids like that there's nothing wrong with somebody being negative or being sad or being cross, but it's only wrong if we take it on board. So, like, it's not, you know, that if we could kind of say, look, they're having a bad day, you know where I am if you need anything. No, I need to go on and do my day and kind of move on to being kind of not in the zone of the negativity. So I think it's a very important lesson for our kids to teach them how to do it young, so that it doesn't impact them when they're older. So negativity is not always bad, but it definitely, it's what it does to others can be bad.
So just another thing on that Dr. Julia Christina YouTube channel as well. Again, I linked to the video in the show notes, but she talks about, like, one common solution for dealing with negative people is just to cut them out of your life. Now, there's no doubt that is absolutely a solution in extreme cases, and it's not bad advice. I think we've all had to do it at some point in our life. You know, when somebody is just really making your life miserable, you just have to cut ties and walk away. But you can't do it for every single situation. You know, there are certain relationships that you just it can be family, it can be teammates, it can be work colleagues, and if you reframe it in a way that, okay, if I can learn to deal with this or to overcome this or to manage this, well, then that in itself is very empowering. No, this is according to Dr. Julia Christine, in case you think I'm getting all zen here now. But it can be very empowering if you can learn to deal with it and manage it and go about your life and not have it affect you. Well, then that's like something that you can take pride in at the end of the day. So she talks about this. It's not them, as in the negative person. It's not them that's draining you. It's your reaction to them that's draining you. So if you can learn to figure out, like, why is it that this person is draining me? Is it because I'm trying to fix it and they don't want to be fixed? Is it because I'm not only empathizing but I'm taking responsibility for them? Is it because I'm allowing their negativity to cause me to be negative about the same situation? Or am I kind of spiraling with them? Do you know? So yeah, the idea of learning how to deal with it, and the other person that actually came up with something similar on this as well, came up with a really good quote on this, is a guy called Jay Johnson. He has a TED video, again, link in the description, and his video is about dealing with difficult people, not necessarily negative people, but difficult people. And he talks about, like, the types of people who, like, you know, have their head buried in their phone. They're not listening to you when you're trying to talk to them, or the been there, done that person, you know, again, kind of something like the one-upmanship type of person, you know, but dealing with people in general. And he asks the question, why is it important to be able to deal with negative people? And he said it's because it's your heart attack. So if after years and years and years of you empathizing with people, trying to fix people's problems, over time, that stress, that worry, that anxiety makes you sick. It just makes you sick. It gives you hypertension. It just makes you tired, makes you sleep less, you eat less, and over time, you're going to give yourself a heart attack. So why should you learn to deal with negative people? Because it's your heart attack. That's what Jay Johnson says. I think that was a kind of a very powerful phrase that I spotted.
When I'm working with clients because obviously there will be stresses in your life from people around you or that you've been brought up with or whatever. The way I like to explain it to them is like this: is that if there's somebody in your life that's affecting how you feel in a negative way, then you need to become aware of that, and you need to then use that information to say, okay, how can I manage? So similar to what she's saying, how can I manage that relationship or that connection with that person so that I'm not being affected in the negative way that I'm affected? Because effectively it's like they're taking all your power away from you. You don't realise it. They don't realise it. They probably don't want it because they have enough stuff going on for themselves. They don't need all your stuff as well. But you're allowing it to happen without knowing you're allowing it to happen. Do you know what I mean? So it's very similar concept to what she says. And sometimes that might be if, you know, when it's not necessarily like you said, some people you can walk away and never see again, and that's fine and that's okay. But other people, you have no choice. You're going to see them on a day-to-day basis. But you can limit the amount of time that you spend with them. Do you know what I mean? And then you can prepare yourself that, okay, I'm going to go into this room with this person for X amount of time. I understand that's how they make me feel. And you can go in with a different mindset. As Mara said, it's about changing your mindset or, you know, using different tools and techniques to. And do you remember on one of the podcasts we talked about that book, Difficult Conversations? That would be in the realm of what that other chap was saying. Do you know what I mean? Where you can actually control the narrative of how, prepare yourself to how you're going to deal with it when you go into that situation, because you know what's coming at you.
Yeah,
because it's coming at you all the time.
Yeah, the people who've been negative in the last 6 months of your life are probably going to be negative for the next 6 months. You know, so don't be surprised. Don't be shocked when someone is negative and you're in like, you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is, and I think that, you know, it's kind of the beauty of life as well, because you know, you have to kind of probably meet somebody negative to actually examine your own self, you know, and that, like, I think, you know, if you see somebody or you feel somebody is being negative, maybe that's the thing that makes you kind of say, no, I don't want to be negative. I need to be more positive. So they're there for a reason too, to maybe help you along, to rethink and evaluate how you're going to go about the day. So yeah, it is tough trying to maybe think that it's your job to fix it, but maybe it's just your job to kind of go, okay, I don't, if that's what negativity sounds like, do I want to be that person today? And then decide to do the opposite. So not always bad.
There's one thing that I know we have we've said this about our brother Stephen at times, and he has this uncanny ability to just acknowledge and forget. When it comes to negativity, he's really, really good at this. So if you've got a situation where there's something negative happening, he has the ability to come in and say, "Oh yeah, that's terrible. That's it. It's done. It's done." Like there's nothing. There's no like trying to change everything in order to fix that thing. It's just like, yeah, that's done. This is part of is actually came up in that Julia Christina thing as well. Two things. Number one, you're allowed to just say nothing. If somebody is complaining at you, you're allowed to just eyeball them and say nothing and say, "Huh," and just leave it hanging. You know, don't get dragged in. Don't get involved. You know, that's one skill. And then the other skill is just basically deflecting it. You know, just deflecting. Jocko Willink talks about disarming and deflect and disarm. So let's say somebody comes in and it's like, "Oh, this is crap. This is that, the other." Yeah, it could be better, but how would you like this thing? You know, just try and redirect the flow of the negativity towards something that we commonly know is positive, and that can disarm somebody as well. So I think we're probably at the point where we can start doing our top tips now.
But I think,
Or do you have other stuff?
There, and I know that we've talked about positivity quite a bit in today. What I would say is it's important to understand that, like, when you look at being positive and say positive psychology and stuff like that, and there can be this element of, wake up every morning and go, today's going to be a great day. And that's grand if you actually believe it or you're invested in making it a great day. But you just have to be very careful that some of the stuff in life that happens to us is challenging and it is difficult. And it's okay, like Mara said, to feel negative. That's okay. But once you are aware, and we talked about this again about being self-aware, when you're self-aware that you're feeling negative or you're feeling down or you're feeling a situation that's heavy, that then you make a concrete choice to do something about it and not to follow that negativity down the road. And the father of positive psychology is a guy called Myrtles, which we talked about before on a couple of episodes. And when you were talking about the pessimistic person earlier on, he has a book called Learned Optimism. And through his journey of looking at positive psychology and the effects of it and the benefits of it and blah, 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 how it's good for us and whatever, he's come up with many different ways of how, even if you are a pessimist, you can actually learn how to switch that and become a bit more optimistic. But it all takes practice. And again, on what Mar says and what you've said a couple of times is that if we, and what those other, that Dr.
Julia Christine
was saying, remember, we've created this pattern to dive into the negativity. So what we're doing is we're doing the same thing over and over again, so it's become a habit. So to break a habit and change it, it means we have to do something different over and over and over again. So even though it may feel difficult at first, the more that you do it, the less that M50 is your major highway and you change it to the M8. All roads lead to Cork. And it becomes more beneficial for you. Do you know what I mean? So he, again, in the show notes, you have the links to those books on the show notes, and it's Learned Optimism by Myrtles.
I think for negativity for me as well, it's very much linked to gratitude. Again, like we've mentioned, gratitude comes up a lot of times in that, you can be in a negative space. I mean, I've started there on a daily basis to kind of put up a gratitude post. It's not easy to put up a gratitude post every day. You know what I mean? Like without, if you're going to be totally honest, you can kind of get up and you can pretend, oh yeah, it's a lovely day like that, but if you're truly going to believe that it is a lovely day and you can change it around, you have to, or even to do the gratitude post, we'll say, truthfully, then you're going to have to acknowledge the negativity that you might feel at that time, and be grateful to say, okay, it's not the easiest day, but look, feel shit, whatever, but look, at least I'm left here wallowing in my own self-pity. I think that's the way I felt yesterday, kind of a little bit of, yeah, sure, like, do you know what I mean? And you kind of you hear things that may put you into that negative frame, and it upsets you, and it's hard to kind of pick yourself up out of it. But even acknowledging that is not a negativity. It's what you do with that negativity is the most important thing. And I really feel that gratitude is kind of one of the main things that can. And
the reason that you find it hard to do that and to be truthful, as you said, is because the mind isn't going to allow you to lie to yourself.
Yeah.
It knows where you are and what headspace you are at that moment in time. So if you're going to get up and say, today is going to be a great day, and inside you don't feel like it's going to be a great day, the mind's not going to allow you to do that. Do you know what I mean? It's going to actually, you need to be realistic and be truthful to yourself. Like saying, do you know that saying, it gets up my goat sometimes, is it's okay to not be okay. And that's a great saying. But the problem with it is How?
Yeah.
How am I okay with being not okay? And this is part of it. This is where you can accept that, okay, I'm not feeling good at this moment in time, but that's okay. And I'm going to now do something about that, whatever that is.
Exactly, like, because that phrase is thrown around so much that I think that that people feel that they need to have a huge reason for not being okay, and when actually sometimes you don't even have a reason for not being okay, but it's that little that little time that you're kind of going, oh, I don't really feel like being the joys of life today.
Yeah.
And then that's where the gratitude comes in, because then you're kind of going, there are people who have it worse than me, and I'm grateful for maybe the things that I have that other people maybe are not lucky enough to have. So it's a little bit of, it's not, that's a very loose term. And I think it can actually, as much as it can empower some people, it can belittle other people.
But I'm not disagreeing with the saying. I think the saying is fine. But I just think it's that on the back of it, you need to be able to put something on the back of it to help. Do you know what I mean?
It's not like, it's not that it's like saying, I'm going to have a beautiful day.
Yeah.
That's the same saying. There's nothing wrong with it. Or have a saying, it's okay not to be okay. The saying is the saying, but if you don't understand it, or if you don't actually know how to
navigate your way with that, like
positive side of that, and see whatever, then it's just a saying.
Well, it's just difficult, yeah.
Yeah.
So one more thing just before we go to the top tips and stuff, is one that's going to come up in the tips, and I think that if it comes up as a tip and we haven't just elaborated on it really quickly, that it won't make sense to when we do talk about it. It is the idea of setting boundaries around yourself when you're in company. So if you're genuinely getting stressed over a particular conversation or a particular type of behavior or a particular type of person and their attitude, it's perfectly okay to speak up and say, look, stop being lazy around me. Stop moping around me. You're making me annoyed. Do you know? It's okay to say that to protect yourself. No, obviously you can't do it all the time. You can't wrap yourself in cotton wool. But if you've tried every other tactic and nothing else is working, well, then it's okay to get odd with somebody and say, look, do you know, you might think that you have less money than anybody else, but believe me, you're fine. You're okay. Have you got enough food to eat? Well, then shut up, right? It's okay to have these types of conversations every so often as well, particularly around, we say, if there's a particular conversation that makes you upset or anxious or depressed or anything like that, you say, look, guys, I really don't want to be talking about this for the rest of the day. Can we change the subject, please? That's setting a very healthy boundary. And again, it's not the negativity that's getting you down. It's your reaction to the negativity that's draining you. So if you don't take the responsibility to set those boundaries for yourself or walk away from the conversation, well, then you can't complain about the effect of the negativity on you on the other side of it, you know? Are we ready for the top tips?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if I have them in the right order, but we'll go through them one by one anyway. Mar, do you want to take the first one there?
Yeah, so it's don't go head to head. So it's a bit like of when, it's like put your brakes on, stop. You have a choice whether to go head to head and engage in the negativity. So it's a bit of like kind of deflecting it and just maybe walking away from it, or maybe just changing the subject completely so that you might pick something a bit that you can chat about that's less negative.
This actually comes into your quote of the week, actually, in a minute,
so.
But we'll come back to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Jimmy, do you have the second one there?
So the second one is, it's okay to empathize, but it's not your responsibility to take responsibility for other people and try to fix them. And that's basically it. You can listen, you can understand, and you can, I suppose, empathize with them, but it's not your responsibility to try and fix them.
So the third one is the one I just talked about just before we went into top tips, is setting boundaries and just making sure that you have the ability to say, look, cop on. Stop being a negative Nelly around me. Stop being a moaning Myrtle. Stop having to pour mouth. You're okay. And stop dragging the rest of us down. It's okay at times to say that. Call somebody out on their bullshit if it's a behavior that somebody has just kind of is just being inconsiderate about. It's okay to call out on it sometimes. As I say, it wouldn't be the first port to call in all situations. You don't know what somebody else is going through. Maybe they're genuinely depressed. Maybe they're genuinely anxious about something, and you need to have some sort of empathy. But just understand that sometimes it's okay to call it out. What's the next one?
Next one is to learn to redirect the conversation towards something positive. So it's kind of, somebody could come in to you or towards you with kind of, a negative attitude, and then just say, did you do anything nice last night? And, sometimes that person isn't in a good place. And by maybe feeding into it, you're not helping, you're bringing yourself as well as them into their... So, like, if there's something that you can just redirect the conversation, admire something or ask about something that is positive, then that's a good way of counteracting the negativity.
Or even paying a compliment to someone while they're feeling down is another
yeah,
way
because
that.
sometimes that's all they need is just that they feel so bad, and then if you just say, oh my God, you get your hair done.
Okay, Jimmy, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, the next one is you're allowed to say nothing. That's it.
That's it.
Just allowed to say nothing.
Oh yeah. So the next one is about complainers. Just that I thought that was such a powerful tactic that it needed to be a top tip of its own. If you've got somebody that's constantly complaining, put them in charge. Just simply put them in charge. Empower them to take over, and they'll either back down or they'll shut up. One of the two. So if somebody is constantly complaining, give them something to do that could lead to a positive outcome. And the thing is, it's not as Jocko Willink describes, it's not meant to be a punitive measure. It's not meant to be like, oh well, you can do better. Well then, off you go do better. That's going head to head and escalating. It's like, oh yeah, so I hear you have some really good ideas. Do you know what? I think you would be good at this. Why don't you take over? Do you know, frame it.
You see all the difficulties there ahead, so maybe you can anticipate it better than I.
Yeah,
body language and tone of voice all matters in how you frame that one.
Yeah. Okay, is there another one there, Mark?
Well, the other one that I think is really, really important is accepting them for who they are. To kind of, like when we're all guilty of being negative at some point. So if you don't accept people for what they are when they're negative, then what happens when you're negative? So sometimes they're there, like everybody is still worth every ounce of value as a person, just because maybe they're not in lucky enough to be in that positive mind frame like you are at that particular time. Then they're still a very, very valuable person in your life. And if you can just accept that, look, that's the way they are, that's the way they feel. It's not, it's not really like a great way to feel and feel sorry for them, for feeling that way. But look, still accept them.
Yeah.
Okay, so the very last one then is, I suppose, most importantly, and Jimmy, maybe this one is best for you to kind of touch on.
Yeah, so the last one is make sure you manage your own stress. And it goes back to, I suppose, when Liam was talking earlier on about how you have a responsibility to your reactions and choices that you make. So it's being aware of the situations that you're in that trigger you to feel the burden of the negative person or the negativity, and to understand that you actually have control. You can control how you react to each different situation and reduce the stress on yourself. If you're constantly trying to take it on and trying to fix it and trying to help other people, and they're not listening to you because they're just that negative Nelly and whatever their mindset is, just understand that, be aware of it, and remember, it's not your job to fix anybody, but it is your job to make sure that you're okay. And it is your job. You can control your own stresses and your own anxieties once you become aware of them. And again, we talked about that before on self-awareness and self-understanding. So it's about just building yourself up to understand all these situations where you are triggered and where you do feel distress, and being able to reduce taking into that mode with the other person.
Okay, so just a quick recap over the top tips, and I have to read them off the board here now, so for those watching in, apologies for seeing the back of my head. So, number 1, don't go head to head, learn to diffuse and disarm. Number 2, empathize, but don't take responsibility. Number 3, set boundaries. I don't want to talk about this anymore. You're allowed to say that. Number 4, learn to redirect the conversation towards something positive. Number 5, you're allowed to say nothing. Number 6, complainers, put them in charge. Number 7, accept negative people for who they are. And finally, number 8, make sure you manage your own stress levels. Okay, it's your heart attack, remember. Okay, so those are our top tips. Hopefully, for those of you who are listening in or watching in on YouTube, or listening in on Spotify, Google, or Apple, or any other podcast stations out there, you got something from those top tips. We'd love to hear your opinions on these. So our call to action today is to head along to the FCPGM podcast and maybe talk about your favorite tactic for dealing with a negative person. Give us an example of a negative person that you recently dealt with, and was it the right way thing to do? Did it make you feel better? So FCPGM community on Facebook. If you want to find a link to that, it's in the show notes at www.fcpgm.com, and you can certainly give us some feedback on that. Okay, Mar, you have a quote of the week for us.
Okay, the Gym Mommas quote of the week is, "You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to."
Very good. And that was anonymous this week, wasn't it?
It was confined to anybody who actually attributed to. So a good one though for the podcast that's in it.
Yeah, it suits for today's
It does.
For today's topic anyway. Okay, guys. Mar, you did you come up with a poll for a book club thing?
Yes, I was delighted from one of the previous podcasts. We had explained more about the affiliate link on the podcast to books and things like that, and how you could buy it through the affiliate link, and that you could you'd help the podcast out. And it was great reaction because we got 3 that day, and that was really, really cool. So it was very exciting. And like I said in the last podcast, what's been brilliant is that, I love reading, I love books, I love the engagement with people who have read the books that I talk about. So we had launched that. We were saying we were going to do the Gym Mommas book club. So the poll on the page, if people could get involved, even still, get involved there. I've chosen 2 books. I must say a big thanks to Kerry, because Kerry is there chatting back and forth, and she came up with one of them, and so she's given me a hand with suggesting the books.
Wave to her there.
Hi Kerry. My warrior princess there she is. What's really good is that the whole book club is about what I wanted to achieve was maybe where we could set up a bit of chatter, where people like-minded, you could actually have conversation about very, very good historical or mindful or people, famous people, whatever, people that are history or things that we can learn from, whatever the book is about. So I'd be looking for suggestions. Please get involved. I would love to see as many people engage around the world as possible, because what it is the more people that get involved, it opens my mind, and that's, you know, selfishly, I'm going to take that. So I'm hoping that other people will, like-minded, want to open their minds with me.
Do you have the 2 books that you wanted to poll on this week?
I do indeed. Just give me 1 second there now, and I'm going to tell you what they are.
I'm going to flash up your quote of the week there. While
are you? Okay, it's not me looking through my phone that you have up, thankfully.
No.
That's all right. That'll do me. So you caught me on the hop now. We're kind of not having this ready, but I have it all done. Oh.
What was a couple of the books that you recommended there in the show notes, Jimmy? What were they there?
So it was Learned Optimism by Martin Siegelman.
Yeah.
And then there's another one called Authentic Happiness, again by him as well. And do you know, I really like him because it isn't when I came across positive psychology years ago, when I started training, it was all about, be positive about this and be positive about that. And I was like, this isn't really sitting with me. He actually brings in the science of it. He explains why. He explains that it's okay to be negative, but it's not okay to actually go down that road with it. And both books, they're really, really good. I've only read one of them, the Learned Optimism one, which is where you can train yourself to be more optimistic than pessimistic, and the reasons why. And it goes into what you were talking about earlier on, which was in our mindset, wherever we are in our mindset has a physiological connection in how we feel. And it goes through all those different stages of tools and techniques of how you can do it. Like,
Did you find it, Mar?
I did indeed. So there's 2 books that I'm asking people to pick from. One was suggested by Kerry, which is A Piece of Cake, by Cupcake Brown, and this is largely about a black lady and her struggles and how she overcame them, and you know, the positivity that comes out of that. The other one that I thought was really, really good is by a guy called Michael Harding, and it's On Tuesday I'm a Buddhist. So they're the 2 books that I would love. I'll put on the actual community page, I'll put a description of the 2 books, a poll, and like ideally I'd like to read both, but let's start together with help me choose one and join me to read it and discuss it, and let's see where it leads to.
Okay, fair enough. So, guys, look, we'll better wrap it up at that, and let's do our usual whip around. Mar, if people want to get in touch with you.
Yeah, you can find me at Marlene Griffin, SPG, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or better still, you can find me at reception for an old cuppa and a chat at any time.
Jimmy, where are people going to find you?
www.apiclinics.com.
With an S.
With an S.
Right, you'll find me at Liam OG Griffin on Twitter. And don't forget, it's www.fcpgm.com for everything to do with the podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Google. Now find us on YouTube because we're video. And make sure you give us a subscribe. Any of the show notes or anything like that we speak about during our podcasts, they're all there on www.fcpgm.com, and you'll find links to our Facebook community page there. You'll find links to our Twitter feed and our Discord server. And as always, we want to hear your feedback. Okay, so that has been your weekly, your weekly what? Your weekly dose of FCPGM.
You were going to say service.
Service, yeah. Anyway, until next week, guys, look after each other, and we'll see you next week.